All right. Is everybody paying attention? Are you looking this way? Do I have your attention? Please. Thank you very much. Now, listen, Gen X Talks, not the podcast. If you think this is the podcast where my wife beats me up for an hour, no. Not the case at all. This is one of the interesting ones. This is one of the interviews that I like to do. This is where you put the cat out, let the dog in, pull the drapes closed, dim the lights, get your favorite adult beverage, and sit back in your favorite chair. Why? Because this is interesting. This is not husband bashing. This is stuff you want to hear. This goes a little bit deeper than usual, and I like that kind of stuff. Now, a lot of familiar faces here. You guys remember? Eric Shores wrote a book. Do you remember what book he wrote? You guys all went out and bought it, didn't you? Here it is right there. See what that says? Life Goes On. Now, you remember we talked to Eric in an interview a couple months back, and he didn't write the book all by himself. I mean, he wrote the book by himself, but he had contributors. He thought he wanted to get different perspectives from different Gen Xers all over the place and bring everyone's thoughts together and kind of see what the differences were, how they aligned. I got to tell you, I am amazed at what Eric has done here. Drawing a parallel. God, I love this. I love my camera. My camera's great. I gotta fold my hands. No talking with your hands. Put your Italian part away. I love that Eric has brought a bunch of Gen Xers together, not just the people that contributed, but all the comments that I've gotten from everybody who's bought the book and read the book, and the parallels in Gen X life growing up. He did a great thing there. I wish that book was 10 more chapters long. I wish there was more people that I could hear their stories too, because you did such a great job. Eric, welcome to the show. Welcome to the program. Appreciate you taking time.
Mark, great to be here. Thanks for having me on again.
And we have our friend Will Padilla, who's also contributed in here. Will?
Hey. Hey, everybody.
And it's not Al, even though it says Al on your screen. It's Siobhan.
Yeah, Siobhan Kieran, thanks for having me.
And she made time for us today. Eric, let's start with you. Let's go back over this. What gave you this idea to write a book, but have you got different authors, different perspectives, and somehow you found a way to make it work. You got to tell me how we got to this point.
Well, Mark, back in August of 2022, I was just listening to one of my 80s music stations, and Jack and Diane came on. And in that moment, it hit me different at that stage of life. And, Jack and Diane, 1982, when the song came out, would have been juniors or seniors in high school, so contemporaries. I was a freshman in 1982. And I just thought, well, what happened to Jack and Diane? And that led to the larger question of, well, what happened to Gen X? Because we've been largely overlooked our entire lives. And so I thought I'd really like to know the answer to that question, not just for myself, but for our generation. And I realized I wasn't the person to write that story alone. I needed more perspectives from just the middle of America. And so I scoured social media and Googled content contributors, authors, columnists, whatever I could find as a key search term to find the people that I was looking for. And some amazing people came aboard and turned out a very special project, as you mentioned.
Well, let me ask you this. You, in addition to that, you wrote a chapter in there also. You contributed your own song in there.
Yes.
Tell me what song you picked. Well, tell all of us what song you picked and why.
The song that I picked was Holding Out for a Hero from Bonnie Tyler, who I share a birthday with, by the way. Had no bearing in my picking the song, but I thought of my own life because, I had a lot of men in my orbit, dads, brothers, uncles, etc., that really had distanced themselves from me, at least emotionally, and from my well-being. And it got me to thinking of how Generation X, we were kind of on our own. We didn't really have the heroes because our heroes self-selected out, if you will, whether it was divorce or whatever other circumstance. And it got me to thinking of our movie heroes of that day, the John McClanes, those archetypes, and that Gen X really didn't have heroes. We had anti-heroes. And that formed our generation that, we did things on our terms, not necessarily how authority wanted us to do them, because largely authority had thumbed their noses at us and we were skeptical of them. And that is essentially how my essay took place, or took shape, rather.
Well, your chapter, you're part of that. It comes across very clear. You painted a very clear picture of the lack of male role models in your life. You walked us down that path very clearly. And you're right about some of that. Just that it was the times they were changing for all of us. There was a lot. There was, like you had mentioned, there was divorce. You wrote a little bit about that. There were single parents, or there was a movement when women were going back to work. And so there was a lot of kids, latchkey kids were home alone because both parents were working. So we did look to movies and TV and music. I think that became sort of our best friends, something that we really looked into. And I was going to mention that too. You mentioned that Bonnie Tyler shares a birthday, and you very proudly bring that up. But the key question here is, does she know that she shares a birthday with Eric Shores? I mean, does she walk around parties going, hey, you know what? I got a birthday with Eric Shores. Just not that anybody cares, but I thought I'd let you know.
Not yet, but we're working on it.
Okay. Well, when you get to that point, let me know. Now, Will, you contributed too. What was your song and why?
Yeah, and it's funny, I guess. I think one of the things we all seem to know about Gen X, right? Maybe it took social media for us to realize how broad, how wide this sort of applied, but that so many of our experiences are so similar, and some of those memes that go around about, I drank out a hose, I stayed out till the lights went on. You did too. I noticed folks in my state or my neighborhood or city, sure, but over in, so maybe it doesn't surprise you that I chose my song, which was "Tell Her About It" by Billy Joel, because Billy Joel for me became that sort of male figure in my life that I sought for guidance, and I'll add this to the list of why men may have been absent was Vietnam. Many of our fathers had fought in the war, including mine, and I didn't know him before he went there. But I knew him afterwards, and I tend to think that it changed who he was, and certainly made him more withdrawn. So when looking for guidance, oftentimes when you're, sort of, I guess, prepubescent and then ultimately pubescent, a lot of it has to do with love. And Billy Joel wrote a lot of songs about love. And I'm now as an adult looking back, some of those messages were bad. He was a guy that was struggling with relationships, divorce, etc. So, singing about stiletto, she cut you once, she cut you twice, or honesty is a lonely word. I was scared of relationships, but wanted them desperately.
Right.
So the song I chose, "Tell Her About It," had to do with that idea that a lesson, one of the good lessons I suppose I took from him, which was to try to be open and honest with someone that I was interested in. And my story, it doesn't work out that way. I'm not brave enough yet, but it's a lesson that's carried me forward since.
Well, Siobhan, what song did you pick and why? And yours is going to be a little tricky for a lot of people to understand. You're going to have to explain that.
Oh, yeah. It was one of the songs, and I think probably out of the whole list of the songs that are in the book, it's one that has a big censorship debate because of some of the verbiage that they use. But I picked Fairy Tale of New York, which is traditionally known as a Christmas song or a holiday song. And it came out, when I was a teenager working in a clothes shop, and I hated it for the first year that I heard it. And then it's a song that kind of followed me all through my life, and it kind of forced itself on me. And I absolutely love it now. And I talked to some of my friends about it, and they say, oh, it's always been my favorite song. But I'm like, when you take yourself back to when you hear it the first time, I didn't identify with it. But as time went on, even within a year, even within 6 months, I started to identify with it. But it's Shane MacGowan from the Pogues, a very handsome gentleman from Ireland. It's Kirsty MacColl, who is an English singer, beautiful singer. Both have since passed away. But it's one of those songs. It was one of those songs that you think you're only going to hear once and it's going to be a bad one-hit wonder. And then suddenly it became this national sensation where Irish people play it and they identify with it all over the world.
Well, let me ask you this. Like you said, it part of the contribution you wrote in the book was you kind of alluded to it sneaks up on you every year. You hear it when you're least expecting it. You probably know it's coming, but you're not really thinking about it. But as Christmas time rolls around, then all of a sudden it hits you and it grabs a hold of you. But you said it's different. So you need to tell me, I'll get my stupid camera to line up again. This is going to be fun. Tell me what it meant to you. Okay, you said you didn't like it for the first year. What didn't you like about that song?
Well, it starts out Shane MacGowan, who back when I was a teenager had a very bad reputation of being drunk on stage and kind of being a little incoherent and hard to understand. And when you go back to that time, that was very much the truth. He did become sober. He got, some work done, so he wasn't as scary looking because he had really bad teeth because of his drinking. And we joke about the Irish and the British teeth all the time, but that was, back in the day, that was the 80s. Everybody, it was almost like your teeth and your face kind of gave you personality.
Yeah.
And so everybody kind of embraced it because they really didn't have many options. The California smile came a lot later. But it was his reputation that I didn't like. Now, the funny thing is, he is a punk. That's his kind. He plays Irish music in a punk kind of a way.
Yeah.
And I do love punk music, but he wasn't one of my go-to people because I always thought he just wasn't a good. Now, don't get me wrong. I know rock stars are not good role models, but I was thinking as an Irish guy who really had a lot to give and a lot of talent, he didn't use it wisely as a youngster. So I didn't like it.
Well, that's not something you normally pick up on, though, as a kid. When you're looking at something back then, you're not. I never looked at anybody that was in music and go, well, they're not exactly a good role model. They're not saying the right thing. I didn't care what they were doing. I mean, that's an odd thing for you to pick up at an early age.
No, do you know what it was? I'll tell you what it was. We grew up in a Catholic society where we all kind of had a worldview, and you either fit into the worldview or you didn't. And if you didn't, then you were kind of in a weird way. I don't want to say outcast because that's not quite right, but you kind of sat on the fringes, because you knew there was redemption there, because you knew the way that the person was brought up, but you also knew that the way they were acting, for example, I didn't want to be embarrassed back then to tell my mom and dad that I was listening to music that had bad language, because that was constantly on the radio being debated all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And as a teenager, you're not you don't really care as much because sometimes bad language is used on purpose,
Well, yeah, but I would have said I'm not going to be embarrassed about I'm listening to. I worried my mom would take my records away and break them. That's why I'm not divulging what I'm listening to. I'm a little more protective there. Okay, so you didn't like it when you first got to it. It kind of sneaks up on you now, and you do now like that song very much because that's the one you chose. I didn't like it when I listened to it. I had never heard that song before until the book. And then I went and listened to it. I'm like, this is horrible. This is a terrible song. Who picked this? And then I made myself listen to it 4 or 5 times. When Will comes up with something and he mentions several songs and Billy Joel in his section of the book, I can relate to all of them, not only because I've heard them all before, but I can very quickly get into the meaning. Billy Joel can lead me right down the path anytime he wants to. I get where he's going with that, and I can feel those emotions. With your song, not so much. I had to listen to it and go, whoa, this is a Christmas song, but it's kind of dark.
It's very dark.
This is not something that's, this isn't Frosty the Snowman. So it's odd. Now, I could say as a teenager, I could see someone going, I really dig this, man. It's kind of, anti-society and it's dark and I dig it. But to come around and say, you didn't like it then, but you do like it now, there's a learning curve in life that took you to that point. We'll get back to that in a minute. Will, let's go back around the board the other way. Tell me about your song, Then versus Now. Tell me what you've learned, because when you read what you wrote in there in your section of the book, you very clearly, there's one point where you go, I shouldn't be listening to Billy. I should not follow his advice. I got to go the other way. You're very clear about that. So tell me where that switch got flipped.
Yeah, and it's been a journey, obviously, and probably for narrative purposes, I nailed it down to one moment, and I think I know which one I told you. Hopefully, hey, read the book and find out.
That's right. You want me to get it? Go right here. I could help you out. I
got my copy right here too. Okay. Always with me.
I know. We have to say that too. Well, he pays us to have that with us at all times.
Yeah. It's true that I did attempt to live this life where, look, I'll be honest with you, and I think this is in the story. My father literally said to me, when I liked my first girl, he said, hey, here's some advice. And my dad didn't really dole out advice, but here's some advice for you. No matter what you do, don't tell her anything personal about you, because the second she has a chance to, she will use it to break your heart. I was like, okay, Dad, got it. And I look, like many of us, I worshiped my dad, know, and in spite of anything he did, I continued to just, he was on a pedestal. And so I lived my life like that. And at times I got my heart broken, but eventually I was getting my heart broken regardless of that.
Yeah.
And it was kind of boring because I was feeling like I wasn't my full self. And so I was in many relationships where I thought I never really got to be all I was. And I remember even one relationship sort of toward the end being more myself because I was like, screw it. And she was like, oh, well, who's this? This guy's interesting, but I'm still dumping you. But I think the moment in the book you're talking about is who I'm with my now wife, where it got to this point where we were in this heated argument. And it seemed like that's it. I thought this is a woman who, I didn't meet her till I was in my 30s. And I thought, well, this is it. I mean, we're great together. But I still had this barrier of being completely honest about this. I like this. I don't like this. This hurts, And it seemed like that's it. We're done. We're splitting up. And I can't do that anymore. I have to just put it all out there. And I did. And, we're together now almost 20 years now.
So what you're kind of saying is if you had followed Billy Joel's advice earlier in life and actually told her about it, you might be with a different person, but you held back all those times.
It's true. Yes. And contrary to what I said about Billy, yes, that was the one piece of advice. That's a good piece is to follow through with you.
Well, then let's finish going around the corner. Eric, how do you feel about your song now?
I largely still feel the same way as it relates to our generation. I think time and perspective for me, I view it a little bit differently insofar as, with youth and inexperience comes overzealousness. And I think in my own life where I didn't have people coming to my aid, I was hypersensitive when other people needed help of whatever nature, and felt the need that, I didn't want them to be like me and not have someone that would come along beside them. And I think sometimes there were circumstances with a little bit better perspective and maturity, I would pick my spots. Because I think there were times I inserted myself into situations with good intentions that I really didn't need to be part of. There's one part to say, Mark, hey man, if you need me, I'm a phone call away. Call me. And hey, Mark, let me help you. I can help you take care of this, when it might be Mark can fully take care of it himself. But again, in my younger days, being hypersensitive to that, I didn't have that filter to be able to recognize the difference between being there if needed and inserting myself into the situation.
Well, then tie the song into that for me. What do you mean by that? I mean, when you're holding out for a hero, there, to me, and I think we've all heard the song, maybe we all have a different perspective on it, but to me, that song was it was someone crying out for help. It was someone, waiting for their knight in shining armor. It was, holding on for a hero. It was waiting for someone to come. And where are these people now? And remember, by that time in our lives, what you were talking about before is there was a lot of latchkey kids, a lot of people, single parents, a lot of kids at home. And I think growing up in that era, you're like, yeah, there's not a lot. Where is everybody? Where is my dad? Where's my uncle? Where are the heroes? And is this still out there? But when you just applied it to what you said, how do you reconcile that? I mean, where you said sometimes you stepped in where you shouldn't. Was that you trying to be the hero uninvited? Is that what you're getting at?
Yes. And to give you the more complete answer, in the book, I also talk about, the Super Friends theme and how, that's that clarion call to action. And going to a 70s tune, which is still one of my favorites, the Little River Band's Hang On, Help Is On Its Way. I'll be there as fast as I can. So it conditioned me to anytime anybody expressed, I need help, or this is a horrible situation, or, whatever it may be, rather than take stock of, okay, is somebody just expressing frustration and barking at the moon in a sense? Because on this podcast right now are three married men. Sometimes our wives will express frustration that we may take as, oh, they want us to come in and help them solve a problem. And that's not always welcomed.
You don't say.
Speaking from personal experience.
Really?
So I think that's, having that discernment of knowing when somebody is just barking at the moon. I'm frustrated. I wish this wasn't here, this discomfort, this challenge, this obstacle.
Yeah.
And being a supportive friend as opposed to heroically jumping in and saying, I can save you like Dudley Do-Right.
Well, I think I can help you here. Now, I don't charge $300 an hour to be a counselor. I'm going to give you this one for free, Eric. If you ever have a moment where you have to discern between the two of, is someone actually crying for help, or are they just frustrated and they're working their way through it? Here's the deal, and I'm going to use your song for this. If someone is having a moment in front of you, your wife, a friend, coworker, if Will Padilla is having a moment right in front of you, if he's actually playing that song out loud, okay, I think you can jump right in. I think right then, that's a cry for help. You just jump right in with that, okay? If he's not, if it's going on inside his head, we'll just leave him alone for a little bit. But I think that's a good option. If it's out there and you can hear it, then you should jump in and go. Let me ask you guys something. I'm teeing off of what Eric just said. We had movies like Stand By Me and Goonies, which is mentioned in the book. I didn't realize that there was so much of our culture when we were all growing up that kind of pushed us to be independent. I mean, think about Goonies and Stand By Me. You're looking for a hero. There's nobody. You're going to test your fear. You're going to test your stamina. You're going to overcome all the issues you've got and move forward. That's what Goonies was. That's what Stand By Me was. It was a lot of that self-reflection. They all had moments where they were kind of revealing to each other about some stuff, but they all pushed on towards the end of the movie. It's like, no, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it on our own, and we're not going to wait for someone to come save us and do it for us. We're going to push through that. I didn't realize that so much of that was written and sung about where we watched it. But is there, and this is going to be an easy one for one of you to answer, I know, but I'm hoping all three of you. I'm going to go to Siobhan first. Is there a moment you can remember, I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, where you realize you kind of had to do this on your own? You're like, I need to get out on my own and go do this, and I can't wait for anybody. Because I think all Gen Xers got to a point, whether we can remember a specific incident or not, I think we got to a point where we realized what Eric is saying, there's not always going to be someone there. There is no hero coming to save us. We just have to do it.
It's an easy answer for me because I was the oldest of 5. So when you're the oldest, you naturally take that role. Whether you want it or not, it's kind of given to you where you really have to be the caretaker. And so I saw my mom take care of my grandfather and my great aunt. So in my mind, I always was thinking, okay, I'm going to be a caretaker at some point. And I was getting a great education with my siblings, and there was one of us right after another. So I think that was the very beginning for me. And also, too, we grew up in like in the 80s and the 70s, it was rural Ireland. So you have to understand that we had, there was for a time, we didn't have well water at the house. We had to go down a lane and actually get water. And it sounds like a little house on the prairie, but it was a little bit like that. So you were taught that you had to step up. When I started babysitting, my father said 30% of your babysitting money goes to your mother. And I was like, why? I was getting like £1 an hour, which was, it was a lot, but it wasn't a lot when you were away for like 3 hours. But his idea was that, that you don't get anything for free. He would bet me things, and he knew right well he was setting me up to lose. But at the same time, If I lost, he would still hold me to that bet. He would always say to me, no, you put your word on and you have to follow through. So I was one of the lucky ones who did have a mom and a dad at home. But my dad worked very hard, especially in the recession in the 80s, always trying to drum up work. The guys that worked for him always got paid first. And sometimes they got paid even when there was no money and he was waiting for a check to come. My mom then in the late 80s started working, and it was really amazing to see that, because I never thought of her as a career woman, but she went out and she did it, and then she came home and she started all over again. And I often say to her now how grateful I am, because I thought I was a great help back then, but knowing what she had to do with 5 kids, I was barely scratching the surface. So I think I learned it. It was almost like ingrained into me from a very young age.
I was going to say you had that self-reliance thing taught to you early on. And, you can complain or not complain, but you learned how to deal with it and move forward. That was just part of your life. Here you are trucking down for some water. I'm the kid in the 80s complaining because my mom bought off-brand cereal. I'm in the kitchen bitching and complaining. And she's like, why don't you try walking 2 miles for water, jerk? Let's see how you like it then. Made me feel really bad. Thanks, Siobhan. I appreciate that. Ruining one part of my childhood as we go along.
That's my goal.
Will... Guy, the pages are reading back through of your chapter, reading through my head right now. I know you're going to pick one. When did you think that, I got to do this on my own? There isn't anybody else. Because you mentioned several points. You got to know something, Will. Tell us.
Well, look. I guess like all of us, and like most of Gen X, it seems like I guess to your point, we were left to our own. So often. So the basic things like Siobhan's been putting out that we had to do, cooking, cleaning, etc., because nobody was around. But I think maybe a more poignant example is the fact that, again, and look, I love my parents dearly, but they were very young when they had us, and they had their own challenges, whether it was money or other issues that adults certainly were faced with just generally. They were absent emotionally and oftentimes our homes were tumultuous. And I have a sister who's just not even a year younger than I am. Look, I was going to say, Siobhan's not changing any stereotypes about Irish people with 5 kids. Irish is the least thing I am, and and I'm quite a diverse person. But my sister, Irish twins is what they told me. We're Puerto Rican Irish twins. But so when stuff would break out in my house between my parents, and it was pretty, scary at times, I had to step up and be the, adult sort of to my sister who was not even a full year younger than me. And that's how it was for years since we were very small, And I think it was at that point where I started becoming disillusioned in that sense that, there's certain things that we have expectations of adults to do for us. And unfortunately, unlike the TV shows and movies that I see where, like the Brady Bunch, we got to do it ourselves. And that was one of the main roles, I guess, I saw that was sort of thrust upon me, but that I accepted because there was no one else to fill it at the time.
Eric, I want you to go a little deeper on that same question where, you don't need to elaborate for a long time, but I need to know. I want to pin you down to exactly one moment when you realized you had to do things on your own. What do you got for me?
Oh boy, I don't talk about this very much, but when I was 13, I got really sick suddenly. Lost 10 pounds in 5 days and had no energy. And over the course of a year, Mom took me to more doctors than I can count to try to figure out what was going on. And I thought I was dying because it's like nothing was working, nothing was getting better. And meanwhile, at school, there were 2 classmates who I will say were the class bullies, and a couple of their friends made my life miserable for a year because since nobody could diagnose what was wrong with me, obviously I was faking and didn't want to go to school, which if you know me, I was about the straightest arrow there was back then, wouldn't tell a lie, all that kind of stuff. And the teachers just sat back and watched it and didn't take any action to dissuade it. So I just had to just shut up and take it. And there was threats of physical violence, which never came to pass, but it was that constant bullying and being picked on each day. And no one was coming to my aid. And it was just like, well, I'm just going to shut up and take it. And I'm going to prove that I'm tougher than they are because I'll just outlast them. And my life went sideways for a couple decades after that. That was a tough time.
Definitely.
But that's how I knew it's up to me, because no one is coming to help me.
Kind of turning a corner there. Like you knew you were turning a corner when it was happening. This little self-realization with that. All right. I want to spin something around the other way for you guys. We'll go back, drop down. We'll go back around the circle the other way. Back to Will. Will, I'm going to ask you a question, and you can't say pass. You can't say skip. I was thinking about this today. I was talking with my wife, and I said, I can't tell whether, and maybe it's both, but I can't tell when I listened to a song as a kid. Sometimes I knew they were writing that song just for me. I mean, it hits you, especially with Billy Joel, so much of his stuff. And you listen, and you're like, man, that's exactly what I'm feeling. That's exactly what I'm thinking. They wrote that song just for me. There I am being dumb. I didn't know they went through it too. I didn't know they went through the same complications and heartaches or difficult. They're musicians, man. They got it made. I didn't know. Did we think someone wrote that just for me and we absorbed every word of that song? Or do you guys think, and again, start with Will, do you think that maybe sometimes we heard the song and that guided us, that steered us like, yeah, I think I'm feeling that way. I think that's a mess. I'm not going to go talk to that girl, or I'm going to go do something. Do you think sometimes, which do you think is more accurate, or which happened more? When we were young and impressionable, did we think that they were writing that song for us, or did we kind of let it steer us in a direction? What do you think?
Yeah. Now, I'm going to take it a step. You said a step further, because you were sort of, somewhat self-deprecating there about whether these songs were just for you or not. I took songs literally at times. I didn't understand poetry and metaphor and simile. I don't know that I thought she cut you once, she cut you twice, then you bleed. That someone was really. I might have thought she was stabbing him. I seriously, because that's how dense I was as a kid. But I tend to think it's the first thing, and I think about comedy. They talk about comedy and comedians, that the funniest things are the things that are the truest.
Yeah.
And so the truer and more honest these songs were, the more likely it was going to resonate with someone who was already feeling those things. And I think for me, my experience always was, yes, that's it. That's exactly it right there. Unless the thing that I thought, well, I hadn't considered that. At least then. I don't know that it's changed much for me now, that music influences me in a way that I think, oh, okay. That's interesting. Instead, it is more like, and that's probably why I turn off songs too. It's like, this doesn't connect with my experience. Switch the dial.
Wow.
And go to something else.
I didn't think of that. That's probably true. I never thought about that. That's probably a real reason why I shut that off. I just don't connect. It doesn't sound right. It doesn't feel like, okay, whatever, man. Wow. Okay. I'm doubling your pay today. You're going to get $12 twice because you just helped me out. That was, for me, that was big. That's it. All right. So you're going along with that. It was not only you took it, some of it was literal, but you really felt like it was all happening. That was a story that was being written, and you were like, you got it completely. Not as much shaping you as it was you were.
100%. It's as if I could have written it myself.
Gotcha.
Because you're right, Billy. I'm having that same experience. Are we dating the same girl?
Siobhan, what about you? Do you think that you related like moment by moment, this is happening to me? Or were you kind of looking at things like, yeah, I could be that way. I'm looking at that down the road and like, did it kind of steer you, or did you just absorb the song for what it was?
It's so funny. I had a breakthrough moment when Will said that too, because I totally get that. And there's songs from back in the 80s that I related to more as I listened to them when I was older than when I got them back then. But I wasn't really into the slow set or the real thought-provoking stuff. I really loved to dance. So I was looking for songs that I could dance to. So like Maniac, that song going back to Flashdance. Oh my God, when that song would come out, that song was written for me. That would have probably have been one of the songs that would have been the soundtrack to my youth. I absolutely love that song. And even now when I hear it on the radio. It's like, it's one of those songs that it just energizes me from the inside out. But there were some songs that were so profound. I remember like, Little Lies, that's going back, Lindsey Buckingham. I remember the song was on the radio one time in the middle of the night, and I had this kind of fever dream, and that song was playing in the background. And it was like, ever since that, I never listened to it the same way again. I think it was like some kind of weird hypnosis, but it was a great song, but it was like that echo that they had. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? But yeah, I think that there were definitely songs that I related to, that the words and the music kind of had to come together. And it was usually back then for me, now it's different now, but back then it was always a dance track. It was always something that I could get out and just kind of move to.
I get that. My wife's that way.
The movement had release in it. And I think when you've got all this energy as a teenager, you need to put it somewhere. So if you weren't running, you had to be, doing some kind of sport or dancing. So that's the way it released for me. Going to the discos on a Friday, Saturday night, we're not about hooking up. We're not about meeting anybody. It was just to dance.
Yeah. I get that. My wife's very much like that. That would be her description too. Although I would point out she knows every word to every song and the meaning of none. She can sing along with them, but I could ask her, what was that song about? I don't know. But you sang every word. Yeah, I did. I mean, she knows every word, but I don't know that she gets it all the way through. The reason I ask about that a little bit too, and I'm gonna let's move on to that second part that none of you picked, by the way. None of you picked that it was shaping you. You all stuck with every one of you stuck with the meaning is right now. It's my life and that's my song, and we all get it. All right. What about shaping you, pushing you in a direction? And I'll give you an example. Dumbass guy here, dumb mechanic in the middle of the desert. When I heard Here I Go Again on My Own, that became a song I knew I could break up with any girl, anytime, anywhere I wanted to.
Yes.
I got to pack my stuff. I put the needle on the record. I get to the front door. And the last thing she sees while she's listening to that song is my backpack. I would not have been able to do that without that song guiding me. Or Motley Crue, Don't Go Away, Mad, Just Go Away. I mean, I learned. I got some education and I got a direction now. Or like, hey, Eric's song, Holding Out for a Hero. I got pumped up where I'm like, I could be that guy. I could be John Eric Hexum on Cover Up. They used that song for cover. I was going to be that guy. I went down camping with a friend of mine, and we took an 8mm camera and dressed up in camouflage and tried to reenact all those opening scenes. I was motivated, man. I was going to go in a direction. I was going to accomplish something. Eric, nothing? Is there any songs out there? Did you ever get pushed down the road by music? Did it ever give you some motivation? There's a lot of ballads when we were growing up, brother. A lot of ballads.
Well, and I'll give you all of the above on an answer with three really quick examples.
Right.
I discovered Joan Jett about the time that life was going sideways. And she... Even to today, with the new stuff that she puts out, it feels like she's looking over my shoulder sometimes at my life.
Right.
And, you look at, and I'll just give you 4 songs real quick. Bad Reputation, Victim of Circumstance, Fake Friends, and I Hate Myself for Loving You are all songs that I can identify with in a period of life, especially Fake Friends. At that time, that came out, I think, my sophomore year of high school. When you were down, they were never there. Her music throughout my life has been a soundtrack because she manages to pick a song or write a song where I can go, hey, that's me.
Well, it hit you because you had one line you pulled out right there. That stuck with you.
Absolutely. And during that time, about the time that I got sick and the constant bullying was going on, Queen and David Bowie's Under Pressure came out. And I can tell you to this day, when that song comes on, I turn it up and my blood just goes cold because I can remember that 13-year-old under pressure in that moment from being sick from something he didn't know what was wrong and from the outside pressure, but also the pressure that was from nobody coming to help me. I think the song that spurred me to do something, and I talk about this, I believe in the introduction of Life Goes On, is George Harrison's Got My Mind Set on You. And there was a young lady who was the best friend of one of the friends that I met in college. So I was a freshman going into sophomore year. She was a freshman, and we got to be very close and really good friends. And, that song would come on, and that was just, spurred me on to say, you know what, you need to do something about the feelings that you're having for this young lady. And I did. And well, let's just say it wasn't as happy as what the song turned out to be. But
do you know why? Because sometimes Billy's wrong. Billy, what he told you to tell her, and you shouldn't have.
But if you what just it taught me was shoot your shot.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
I'm not happy with the way things turned out necessarily, because then obviously the friendship ended, because then it got awkward and messy and whatever. But shoot your shot.
Yeah,
and I'd rather live with the knowledge of what happened than live with the regret of
what could have done. Yeah. Well, what do they always say in sports? You miss every shot you don't take.
Absolutely.
You missed it. Now, I got to corner you on something, because I think we're kind of friends now. I think we got to know each other a little bit. Yeah. I'm not going to call you a liar. Okay. I'm not just going to come out and go, Eric, you're lying. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to do that. All right. But I got to ask you something. So when you listed all those things, and they're like, there's a time in my life with Joan Jett here and this and that there, and then you threw out the song Bad Reputation. Mm-hmm. Now, unfortunately for you, we all know the words to Bad Reputation. Eric, that didn't fit you at all anywhere. I can't imagine you ever walking around going, I don't care what people think about my bad reputation. I don't care. Now, come on, man.
Okay. Now, but all right. And that, Mark, entirely fair. And I would bet 99.9% of the people who know me would say the same thing.
Okay.
In that instance, I was using it a little ironically, because everybody thought this straight and narrow kid was faking this illness because he didn't want to go to school. And I was a high performer in school.
Right.
So it made absolutely no sense. So, whatever they thought about me, that was the reputation they were putting on me. So I don't give a damn about my bad reputation.
So we got to take the word bad out and just use you don't care about what they think about your reputation.
Yeah.
Because you really weren't, it was bad.
No, they were trying to pin something bad on me.
Oh,
okay. In general, Mark.
I just want you to know, Eric, I'm listening. I'm paying attention, man. I want you to think you can slip something by me here. I'm really digging into it. Will?
Yeah. I think thinking about what you said earlier about do we just connect with the song, or does the song influence us?
Yeah.
And so I think this is different. Not a song influencing me necessarily, but being aspirational. And I don't honestly know if this is a product of the movies of the 1980s, but so many of the songs that I feel like I used to, and I think this is still the question, I don't know, inspire me, change maybe a perspective, is because of the montages we had in so many 80s films. And so those songs want to be my pump me up songs when I was feeling down. So, You Do the Best Around, Burning Heart, Eye of the Tiger, any song where Rocky is, punching meat, wound up being these songs that I wasn't necessarily feeling that way. And probably I listened to them when I wasn't, so that I could get back on track and feel good about it again. I think Siobhan's listening to a different show.
No. Look.
No, you see what he's doing? He's giving us a say anything moment.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Well, that's what I was asking about it. If I didn't get specific, like you say, you can get to specific songs that drive you in a direction. You can think about things that push you specifically to make you do something or be better or, climb that hill or overcome that deal. But what about just songs that made you intentionally feel good? I'm going to think back to Beach Boys. Growing up in Southern California, it didn't matter what era you were from or how old you were. Beach Boys were never considered, well, that's really old stuff. Why are you still listening to that? No, that was kind of a staple. You just got issued those records when you move into the suburbs in Southern California, and that was it. And I remember songs that just made me feel great. Like I wanted to go be alive. I didn't have something specific, but gosh, I could listen to the Beach Boys and I could pick me up and just go, and I wanted to be better about my day. Siobhan, was there any music for you that just drove you in a good direction in life? You can remember it was always kind of your go-to pick-me-up music?
You see, we also were in a situation too that we were kind of confined to what we heard on the radio. And we did have different radio stations, not a ton of them, but we did have different radio stations. So you might be like surfing the dial trying to find your favorite song at the time. And not always when you heard a song you liked it first time, so you kind of had to give it a bit of a chance. We had, when I was a kid, we had Top of the Pops on a Thursday night. That was appointment viewing. It was a half hour long. They would show bits of videos. It was kind of like the Irish equivalent or the British equivalent of MTV. And boy, did I love it, because I was enamored not just by the music, but by the videos of, Duran Duran off on tropical islands and stuff like that. So, I was like, when you would hear the song later, you could just picture the beautiful waves and the boats and all that kind of stuff. So you were always kind of like living in the moment of whatever music that was playing. And even if you didn't like it, you'd still kind of battle through it, because you kind of knew the sequence of songs even before you understood that there was a playlist. You knew that your song was going to be in rotation sooner or later. If you didn't hear it sometime in the last hour, it'll come up again. So, and we also had such a wide variety of music. So at the same time, I was mad about English pop music and new wave and all that kind of stuff. Mad about it. I also loved the Irish music too, and not just the Irish music, but the Irish pop music. And there's a whole culture there that never really seemed to break across the sea or the borders of Ireland, which is really unfortunate, because the stuff is really brilliant. The stuff, though, like when you look back and you think that most of the time the people who are writing these were people who are only like a few years older than us. And some of the poetry and the artistry in this music and the words and the way they crafted it, I'd be thinking like Depeche Mode, which is one of my favorite bands. I'm thinking these guys were basically hoodlums, back in the day. They often joke about it. Mark Ahern says that if he didn't end up in music, he'd end up in prison. And yet they were writing this amazing poetry, really, from the 70s on, and still to this day.
You got a lot of time when you're carrying buckets of water 2 miles. I mean, you got time to think about things and write stuff down. It gives you some creative license there, with those emotions. I want you to know that I'm culturally acceptable for Irish. I really, despite my friends making fun of me, I really enjoyed Lord of the Dance. I thought that was great. Okay. And for the American side across the pond, huge fan of the Dropkick Murphys. Sunshine Highway is one of my favorite songs. See, so want to make sure we're connecting here, Siobhan. I want you to
totally.
All right.
Totally.
Doing my homework. My life is adjoining here. Will, what was your pick-me-up? What was the good stuff, man, that you could just put in the tape and go?
Well, first of all, I love Lucky Charms, Siobhan. So if that's any connection, I'm trying to connect too. But I'm American. Yeah.
Well, I've been beat.
Yeah. I was thinking about, Siobhan said earlier about really being into dance music and stuff like that. I still to this day, and I always will seek out, up-tempo, fast beat music. And oftentimes it is dance music. Early in the 1980s, I started DJing. I think it was around 7th grade. And I lived right outside of New York City, so I had the benefit of hearing, these radio stations that would play, the new romantics and new wave, and I would, befriend, DJs who worked at record stores when they weren't at a club, and they would recommend records, and so I had amassed, a collection of dance records that wouldn't necessarily be played certainly on mainstream. They weren't top 40. And they would make my own mixtapes. Folks often made mixtapes for the person that they were interested in, or send a message to a friend. I made mixtapes that I could, play in a boombox like Eric had held over his head just a moment ago, or wherever I was, my bedroom, that sort of thing. And almost always it was dance music, and I'm talking, freestyle or club music. And to this day, it's still like that. I tried, I Googled this recently. I really think that there may be a phenomenon of folks that are just hypersensitive to music. because music that is, maudlin or sad, or it really, and when it's happy, it has the opposite effect. But whatever the music is, it really affects me. So much so that my daughter's a dancer, but we'll go see ballet, and there'll be a lot of these modern dances are always to some kind of sad song. I have to disassociate sometimes because it's like too moving, and it's sort of, I can't enjoy.
You realize, Will, that's two segments in a row I've come to you and you've told us on how you're disconnecting. Last time you turned off the radio. Now you're talking about disconnecting during ballet. Now, if that's where this is going to go, buddy, if you're going to lecture me on disconnecting, you're kind of defeating the purpose of the interview here, pal.
You're right. Now I feel like I'm not even connecting with you guys. I'm worried.
I'm just asking you. You started off with the Lucky Charms thing, man. We're fumbling through. I'm going to let you off the hook. I just want to know if there was a time when you could pop in something, maybe driving alone, and you're like, man, this just isn't going right, or I don't want to get up and go to work or go to school, but you had something you could pop in that instantly make you feel better about getting on with your day. Do you remember anything like that? Something come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk specific songs, it's quite honestly, after I said all that stuff about dance music, it's probably Licensed to Ill. Play it front to back. And actually, Sgt. Pepper's. I wore a cassette tape of Sgt. Pepper's out. It was another song, front to back.
Yeah, I get that.
Good. So so there you go. All right, and I'm going to stop talking now before I dig any further.
Now, before he damages this interview any further, I told you it was a risk having Will on here. I warned you. What do you think, Eric? What was something that could pick you up when you're like, I just want to feel good about my day, and you had a go-to album or something you could pop in and just go?
Well, first, Siobhan, I want to say that on our local PBS station every Friday night, we watch the Irish Rovers for years and love them.
Thanks, Eric.
Wait, we're all making sure we're aligning. Hey, just so you know, Siobhan, at some level, we're all with you here.
Totally get it.
I would say two of the songs that just really get me going, that if I hear them, the day is going to be good because it gives me that nice feel-good adrenaline rush, would be Goody Two Shoes by Adam Ant and Talk Dirty by Poison.
Yeah. I'd go along with those two. I wouldn't turn those down in the car at all. Mm-hmm. If you guys had to pick 1 year from your youth, and let's say before, I hate saying before 21, but that's really what I want to say. It's from 15 to 18, but then that completely cuts out all of Siobhan's clubbing days because I'm sure all the clubs were older. But we'll go to Siobhan first and put her on the spot. Pick a year in your life that you think was just like, maybe you'd relive it, or if someone said, hey, you're going to relive one in your brain, you got to think about these memories, something. What's your best year back then? What was your favorite thing?
Every year there was kind of always something, but I think I went to England to work, and I look back now, I can't believe my parents let me go. I was about 17 and I went over for the summer, and I got a job at the Woking News and Mail as a internship journalist, which was what my vocation was meant to be, was journalism. So I stayed in an Irish house, which was nothing but fun. As we say in Ireland, it was great crack. It was like crack from the morning to the night. They worked hard, but they played hard.
Great
and they
crack? You said crack?
Crack, C-R-A-I-C. Okay. So what they did was because they took me in as their little sister, we would go on little adventures every evening or every weekend. And oh my God, it was so much fun. But I got to go see the Rolling Stones in Wembley on their final tour, and that was about 89, I think.
Oh, that final tour.
Yeah,
that one. Okay.
Tour.
I think that was the second final tour. All right, I'm with you.
Went to see Madonna, which was great. And, and it was so much fun too, because that fit right into who I was at the time. And then there was a soundtrack to that holiday too, because, that was in England, and it was just slightly different music on the radio. And, I went to see the Rocky Horror Picture Show at the West End. So that also had like a profound impact. I came back a very different person. Like I was so focused when I came back. I wanted to finish my education. I wanted to get my degree. I wanted to finish school and do what I had to do to get it done.
I got to tell you, when I saw Rocky Horror Picture Show, that did not focus me at all. I got to say, I had a completely different reaction to that movie. I'm just saying, we're very different.
we went to the theater part, and so we dressed up and everything, which was nothing when you're a teenager, because it wasn't far removed from what you were wearing anyway. So but it was a great time.
Well, I'll tell you,
it was so profound.
I kind of knew you'd have a specific answer to that. Not that the guys won't, but one thing you wrote in your part of the book was you said, and for me, this is what caught me. All of my Christmases as a kid run together. All of my years kind of run together. Now I can remember a specific girl or a concert, and I go, that was in this year, and I can kind of separate some of those by events. But for the most part, all of those times run together. But you wrote in your part of the book how everyone is different. Every Christmas was different. Everyone was specific. Like you have individual memories of each one. I thought that was so unusual because I don't. They're all kind of a big blur. They were great, but they were all kind of a blur. So I kind of knew when I was going to ask you that you'd be able to pin down something specific, because it seems like you have that kind of memory. But before we move on to the guys with that same question, guys, that's coming now. Your question's coming. How can you do that? How were Christmases so different that they're that memorable?
Well, it started off probably that year, believe it or not. The song Fairy Tale of New York, I heard it different when I came back, because I was working and going to college at the same time, and I had a very heavy load, and I didn't have any social life at all. So that song was playing in the clothes shop that I worked in. And the year before that I heard it, I was like, oh, this song is horrible. I hate Shane MacGowan. This year I heard it differently, because it was Shane MacGowan singing with Kirsty MacColl, who is an English lady, and I could understand how the relationship would work. We grew up in a bubble. We grew up with, the troubles of the North, because I'm a child of the 70s. So we grew up with the troubles of the North. So there was a lot of rumors that are only being found to be true now, that there was a lot of misinformation. There were innocent people put in jail. There were people who had forced confessions. There was planted evidence, all this kind of stuff. We all knew it, but there was no evidence to show otherwise. And now what they've done is, in recent years, they have put all this evidence through, and they have retried a lot of people and let them out or exonerated them after their deaths or what have you. But we grew up knowing this, but nobody could prove it. So we grew up in a very tumultuous society. So the British were deemed, the bad guys. When I worked and I lived there, I saw a whole other side, and they were wonderful. I've still friends to this day that I made at the newspaper. Go figure. I mean, it just shows how great they were.
Yeah.
And that was the catalyst for me changing my mentality and having a bigger worldview, and seeing that, this was the first Christmas that I started to feel that it was different. And then for some reason, everything that I did after that, the life changes all seem to happen around the holidays, and it just changed.
Oh, yeah. That can be a marker for you too.
Exactly.
I get that.
I came to America in December, for example, so it was all those kinds of things.
I can see that. That makes a lot of sense. That's the background I was looking for with that answer after I read your part of the book. That fills in a lot of gaps there too. And just to go on the record again, so that you and I can stay connected, we here in America, we had a problem with the British a while back too. I don't know if you guys heard about that or not, but a little bit of a thing there. So I don't want to get into it right now, but
we all celebrate July 4th for different reasons.
They're a little salty about some of that too. So I don't like bringing it up. Will, what was your best year back then?
I'll be quite honest. I don't have the memory that Siobhan does. I have more aligned with you, Mark, with stuff blurring together. So when I think of these years and possibly things that have aligned in such a way that would be a best year, it comes down to in part pop culture and in part where I was sort of in my journey.
Yeah,
I suppose as a young person, I regard 1984 as the best year for pop culture in the 1980s, and I was a big pop culture guy, whether it be movies or music.
Yeah.
And like we're talking about in this entire episode, how influential those things could be on us. But 84 was Ghostbusters, Temple of Doom, Karate Kid, Terminator,
Huge.
on and on. Music-wise, Van Halen's, 1984. You got Purple Rain, Like a Virgin, Born in the USA. And at the time I was, 13, 14 years old, and I was just, about to go to high school. And so a lot of things were happening there as well, where I was starting to feel not only were independence thrust upon us as a young person, but actually feeling like I was truly having it for myself at this point, instead of having to do it because, my parents weren't helping.
Well, you're not watching it on movies and TVs. Now you're getting into high school. You're going to start living it. Yeah, you're right at that. Everything changes.
Yeah. So I would say 1984.
Eric, no lying this time. What do you think, buddy? What year is best for you?
1987.
Wow, that was a definite answer.
Yeah. 84 is a close second, but 87 to me was the best because I was out of high school. I'd moved about 30, 40 miles away to go to college. So I was away from the brand of my K through 12 years. And I could start out with people meeting me with a fresh slate and giving me a chance, not, oh, well, that's his last name, or he comes from that family, or that whatever. And I just got to meet a lot of cool people and form authentic relationships. In fact, two of the guys that I met my first day of college, we've been friends since and hang out all the time. And it'll be 40 years in January. January 19th will be 40 years since we met. Wow. And I was working in radio at the time on weekends. And I think what cemented 87 for me was probably the single greatest weekend of my life, other than marrying my wife, Julie.
Nice touch.
Thank you.
Throw that in there. She may listen to this.
Yes. Oh, she will. So October 17th, 1987, I was in Mankato receiving a scholarship award from the Minnesota Broadcasters Association. That event finished up and I sped about 60-ish miles because one of my childhood friends was getting married. So it was the wedding and the wedding dance. And then the next day I was in Minneapolis for game 2 of the 1987 World Series. Met Willie Stargell in the lobby of a hotel.
Wow, how cool.
Yeah, 87 was an amazing, amazing year.
There's a plaque at Dodger Stadium way out back behind right field, underneath where they sell popcorn. And it's a plaque for Willie Stargell hitting the longest home run in Dodger Stadium. Not happy about that. I think we broke it, but God, for my whole growing up, I'm like, couldn't a Dodger do this? Why do we got to have Willie Stargell's name up here? But I get that. 40 years, man. You got that for your best friends for that long. Will, what's your oldest friend right now? Who do you go back the furthest with that you would consider a close friend?
Wow.
How far back?
Probably, let's see. I've known this person for as long as 4th grade. So that's, I guess, that's longer than 40 years now.
Yeah.
I don't know, 40 something years. But we really didn't become good friends until a few years after that. And we've been friends ever since. So, whatever that math is, I don't know. I'm not good at math.
Siobhan, who's your oldest friend right now from way back?
My best friend from high school. I remember I met her like on my 2nd or 3rd day of high school, Ashley. And she and we've weathered so much together over the years. She's like another sister to me. But I also have a friend that goes back even further to when I was about 6 or 7. But I'm close, very close with Ashley. Yeah. It's, she was very much a guiding light for me. She was just a little bit older than me. So she was the girl who would, on a Friday night, say, come on, we're going out to the movies. Or come on, you're going to your first disco.
Right.
Or come on, we're going out. And I'd be like, oh, no, I'm a homebody. I'm fine. And then she got me out. I got a taste of it. And that was it. And then I was a social butterfly. But yeah, I credit her for a lot of, being there as a friend at the time and us exploring and falling a lot together. because we really didn't know what we were doing. We were navigating by ourselves.
Sure. Well, who does? But yeah, if you have a friend to do stuff like that with, and I think if you still have those friends now, I don't see some of my older kids that are millennials, they're in their early 30s right now. I don't think any of them have lifelong friends, and watching them grow up, and we didn't move. We stayed in the same spot. They went to junior highs and high schools. None of them really got that best friend, even if it was just for junior high or just for high school. They didn't have, and a lot of their friends would come over, and I'm like, well, you're hanging out. Oh, he's hanging out with him. Now they're over here. They didn't seem to have that tight knit community like we did growing up. We all had friends. I mean, you can go back and you can pick some solid people from way back. I don't think I see that as much anymore, and I've got a pretty good sample size of 8 kids, and all of them had a bunch of friends. So I'm watching 40 or 50 kids grow up, and it just it doesn't seem the same to me looking back. And all of you just described friendships going back 40 years or more, and I just don't see them having that because they don't have it now. It just, I don't know, unless some people come back in their life. I want to ask you 2 questions about movies. But I feel really bad because if Siobhan's never seen these movies, I forget she didn't have electricity where she grew up. So I got to wonder if the little dial-up projector. Have all of you seen Breakfast Club? I'm assuming by now we're all good there. All right. We're going to start with Eric. Eric, which character you identify the closest with in Breakfast Club?
Oh boy. And I'm movies are always awkward for me because I didn't see very many growing up. And so I've seen Breakfast Club. I don't remember the characters' names, but it probably would have been.
But there was a nerd, there was a jock, there was a trouble. I mean, you know what they were.
I would have to go with Michael Anthony Hall's nerd character. Just very kind-hearted, a little naive, well-intentioned, wanted to fit in with the cool kid, so to speak. And every time he tried, he ended up getting a high five back into his forehead.
And just to project on that, maybe if you got high one time, you'd act just like that. I mean, that'd be the silliest thing we've all ever seen. I don't know.
I don't think you're wrong.
Will, which one are you?
Yeah. Gosh, I feel I sense myself giving you a wishy-washy answer by saying that I feel an amalgam of them, because I don't know that I'm any one far over enough. I'm even the princess, a little bit too. That there's different aspects of the different characters that I've been. I'm not cool enough to be Bender, or dangerous enough. But there was certainly a rebellious side to me when I was younger that way. But I was also nerdy in the regard that I loved doing computers and that sort of thing. I think to my benefit, and maybe some of this was what they call code switching, where you're able to sort of just match the group you're with. But I was the kid in the cafeteria who would all go from the nerd table to the jock table to the, the smoking table, where all the heavy metal people were, and have friends in all those groups. So I recall seeing that film. I don't remember thinking I was overwhelmingly felt like anyone in particular.
Well, you just stole the ending to the movie.
Yes,
you did.
Right.
You just
the letter. Yes,
the letter. They wrote the letter.
Yeah.
Said, we are all the jock. We are all the princess. Thanks for just plagiarizing John Hughes right off the whole thing there. Great.
I shouldn't have come on.
I'm telling you, that's 4 segments now we've had questionable answers from. All right.
I should have said which character disconnected the most from reality. That's the one.
No, I would say for me, I was probably a bit like Will, because I had to ask my friend Ashley. I said, who were the popular kids at school when we were growing up? And that's the truth. I really did have to ask her.
You know what? I think, but the great part is, not only did you not know, you obviously didn't care, or you wouldn't have had to ask. That's great.
I really didn't. You can probably guess, I have a bit of a Pollyanna attitude, so that carried me through a lot. And I think I developed that when I was younger, probably as the teenager, because you have, you either laugh or you cry, and you have to look at the everything either half full or half empty. So I cognitively decided to go with half full. So I'll tell you a funny little thing, a little story though related to that. I used to go up to Dublin on the bus every day to go to college. And one of the best pieces of advice was some graffiti on the ladies' bathroom in Buceras in Dublin. Whoever wrote this, I swear, just needs, I don't know, something, a prize of some kind. So the graffiti said, and I was probably about 16, 17 when I read this, a girl is never left on the shelf when that girl is married to herself. And I adopted that as my philosophy for the rest of my life. And it was the best piece of graffiti I've ever read. And Ireland is very known for its graffiti, very creative. But this one got me.
So you read a lot of graffiti, do you, in bathrooms?
Do you know what? That
trying to be clear on that.
Yes. She called a lot of phone numbers for good times.
Very disappointing. That's a very disappointing time in Siobhan's life. You know how many of those numbers didn't actually work?
Yeah.
They didn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? I've written a lot of graffiti in bathrooms, just so you know.
How did I know that was coming?
Although I don't think that helps me here. But Ireland is known for great graffiti.
Trying to
just
build
so
you
you know.
up here, Siobhan. Trying to.
Yeah.
Will's
But you
looking.
can see anything from something really poetic to, like, you know,
A dirty limerick, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but
to
you know-
philosophy, to politics.
You know, the only thing going through Will's mind right now, he's looking, going, I'm not looking so bad now, am I?
Yeah. Yes. Let's talk more about Siobhan.
Mark, can I say something real quick?
Absolutely.
I hope people are getting the sense of why I love this book so, and why it was put together. It was is because of the stories that we're sharing like this, all the layers, the perspectives, the life experiences. This just, I'm lighting up like a Christmas tree on my end, because it's just the fullness and richness of this conversation reminds me of just how spectacular and spectacularly lucky I was in finding the people that I did to contribute to this book, because it's just, this is just such a wonderful thing that you're
I
doing.
agree. I hope that I kind of think that maybe people that have read the book that watch this and listen to this, they're going to get it. They're going to get the background of all of us and how we contributed. That's going to be a big part of it. The other one is that what happens when we're done with this, if they see all of us interacting this way, we don't really know each other than, you know, the brief time we've been on this planet interacting, maybe some more than others. How on earth are we interacting at this level? How did this happen? I've never met Siobhan before, and I'm feeling like she's my sister right now because we're just goofing around talking about all sorts of stuff like we've known each other for years. But that's Gen X. There's quite a bit of people that we can talk about those things and bring up topics, and we're all very similar. And we get, even if I don't know her stories when I'm listening, I get it. Where if you played that for someone else, someone of another generation, they'd be like, I don't understand what you're talking about at all. Why is bathroom graffiti funny? It's hilarious. You know, they don't understand that. Or if you really go down and read parts of the book about being left alone, which there's a couple chapters in there where people touched on that about it. God, I didn't want to bring this up. There was, I don't think I will. There's some places where people left some sentences unfinished in chapters in that book where they said something and it leaves you wondering what happened next, but like they steered away from it. And the reason I know that, or the reason I feel that, is because I have things like that in my life that I grew up the same way. Like you almost want to talk about it, but I can't quite get there. But look right here, someone else did it too. And it leaves you wondering, you know, and they move on in the sentence. That's just our generation. That's just how we were brought up and the cultivating of how we became who we all are. I'm with you, Eric, 100%, man. I dig this. I hope that this turns people into, now I want to go read that book. If that's what these guys are doing and they wrote all this stuff, I now want to go read the book. I want to see what the rest of it is. How did we get here? I hope that's what it does. I don't know if that's where you were going with it, but that's what I mean by it.
The one thing that I will say about reading through the book is how, while we were all in different places and had had different backgrounds, how we all kind of identified on some level. And overwhelmingly, there's so much positivity in this book. It makes me yearn for the 80s. Like, it really does. And I loved that. I loved the way the book made me feel as I read different people's stories, and I could relate to them on a different level. And I learned some new music too. So it was kind of fun to be able to learn stuff that I didn't know before while it was going on in a parallel universe in the 80s in my life.
We also learned that I'm a lot dumber than everybody else because everybody wrote like an author. I wrote like some high school kid writing it on the trunk of his car at Burbank Airport watching planes land. And you guys were all using $12 words. I'm using $3 words. And then we get all the way done, and you guys wrote like 12 more pages than I did. I'm like, well, was I supposed to write more? I'll tell you what, boy, I'm surprised that I wasn't put at the back of the book, like as the footnote, like, oh yeah, there's one more chapter just in case you guys feel like reading it. It's back here. If you want to, it's over there. Cause you guys wrote some eloquent stuff. You guys got your points across very well. Me, not so much. So thanks for that, everybody. Appreciate you.
Not at all.
As the bard said, brevity is the soul of wit.
There you go.
Yeah, well, it didn't come across that way. It came across like I didn't have anything to contribute. I blame Eric. Eric should have taken some liberty there and stretched that out. Eric, you could have put in a few more pages for me. Well, listen, here's the final thing I want to leave you guys with, and I'm going to ask you each this. We're going to start with, I would start with Eric because it's his turn, but I want him to be last on this one, so I'm going to start with Will. Will, now that you've read the book, you've contributed to the book, and now you spent this time with us here, I want to know what this whole experience has been for you. And it doesn't have to be the biggest part of your life or anything. I want your feelings on how you connected with the other contributors and the chapters in the book, and the experience of taking time to write down some stuff, because you wrote down some memories, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I guess with regard to writing it, I mean, it was quite cathartic. A lot of us have these stories that we're sharing right now that we may never put pen to paper. And so to finally to be able to do that exercise, a couple of things. One, as I mentioned, it's sort of this, exorcising of this, the sort of any sort of, I guess, negative feelings maybe I had connected to any of these sort of experiences I had, but also being able to evaluate them in this perspective that gave me, this positivity that we're talking about, where I was able to appreciate, and I think probably, concretizing it on a piece of paper that was, more than 4 pages or 5 pages like yours, really set it in. That was,
I got what you said there. Thanks. I'm trying to skip over that. I got it, buddy.
Allowed me to appreciate, I guess what I went through from this perspective of, how many years later it is now.
Yeah.
And appreciate that young person and that person who's, grown to be now. So that was a great exercise as far as that goes. As far as reading the book, just like what we're saying here, and, Siobhan was pointing out, it was fascinating to, again, like we're talking about, and Siobhan being from Ireland, to have this sort of international representation where we had these things that we had in common. And in particular, I mean, like the book suggests, the role that music in particular played for that, which, again, I was thinking that maybe I just had a particular sensitivity to it, but no, it's this generational thing for our Gen Xers.
Okay, so we're going to write Will down. His book was very therapeutic. Okay. Not exactly stars there, but okay.
Okay.
Siobhan?
Come back around. I'll think of something else. I haven't finished it yet. Hang on. I'm still reading it now, Mark. Oh, I'm just getting to yours now. Oh, I finished it now. I also just finished yours.
Oh, and that was Will. That was Will Padilla, everybody. Siobhan, what did this whole thing mean to you? What'd you get out of it?
It was kind of interesting because I ended up using it as a lesson for myself, because I didn't really think about the songs that had an impact on me until Eric kind of questioned, what is your song? And I never would have picked this song, except it picked me. So that was why it was kind of unusual. And I think overwhelmingly, the thing that I get the most from this book is that it really gave you this feeling of being back in the 80s, that carefree mentality, where even though there were struggles, we were all survivors. We were survivors before we knew we were survivors. We were very optimistic internally, and we were the get it done kind of generation, move on, get it done, get out of my way. I'm clear the way, I'm getting this done. The freedom. I remember the freedom, and I don't think that the generations now have the same freedom we had. It just seemed like we've been overwhelmed with knowledge. It's probably, on one hand, it's a good thing, but on another hand, it took away some of that freedom and that carefreeness that we had. But boy, did I really enjoy reading it. I'll be looking forward to reading it again when I'm taking a long plane ride home, because it's the kind of one that when you put your mindset back in that, you can feel the emotion from the era, and you can apply it in your everyday life. You don't have to, fall in line with everybody else. You can be the 80s inside.
Sure. I think going back now, reading it, since you brought that up, I think for all of us, if we did read it again, I think that we might have a little bit better perspective of what each of us wrote. Like after speaking today, I'd go back and read yours again and go, I get a little bit of that, a little more insight, a little deeper now because I've met you. So now that I think that would mean something. I'm skipping over Will. He doesn't get to answer again. Therapeutic was his. I'm going to write down for Siobhan, likes to live in the 80s, and this was a good way for her to do it. She wanted to just go back in time. Carefree. Yeah, it's good stuff there. Eric, this was your baby, man, from beginning to end. I mean, whether it swims or it sinks, if it's good or it's not, when the end of the day, it's yours. You own it. And lucky for you, it turned out great, because if it didn't, it still belonged to Eric Shores. But how's this been for you?
It has been an amazing journey. When I started this project, it was really, how did we turn out as Gen X? And what it flipped into was how we became, and how 80s music helped us to become who we are today. And it also was a great reminder of how awesome a generation we are. We're the feral generation. We're loners. We're used to being self-sufficient and self-reliant. And of all the contributors to the book, the only person that I knew before this project started was Siobhan. I didn't know you, Mark. I didn't know Will. I didn't know any of the others. I just sent out an invitation and said, hey, would you write a 3,000 word essay, or in Mark's case, 120 word essay?
You invited this, Mark.
I did. I decided I just threw a softball up there. I really didn't want you guys to hit it so hard, but
and they voluntarily did something that we hated to do in high school, which was to write an essay.
Yeah.
But it's that connective tissue of 80s music that truly brings us together, whether we know each other or not. And all of these strangers came to my aid, if we want to bring this full circle, and said, we'd love to do that. And it's just been a wonderful experience on that end. But also, Siobhan touched upon it as well, is, the songs that I had never heard of. And, Siobhan is a huge Depeche Mode fan. Mm-hmm. I was kind of like, yeah, I guess I got a couple of good songs. And now I love Depeche Mode because I've gone back into their library and found some other artists as well that I didn't know back in the 80s. And I feel like the blessing is compounded because now I get to relive the 80s again in a different type of parallel universe. And it's just been from top to bottom, just a wonderful experience. And just as you can hear in my voice, it's just been such a blessing.
Yeah, no, you can tell it's coming out in your face too. You really have enjoyed the entire process. I don't think you could hide it if you wanted to. I don't think you could hide how you're feeling about it. It's coming across, and we all feel that way. Eric, you did such a good job with this. I love the fact that you have done other interviews. You've done some TV stuff about the book. You've got some placement out there. Not real happy that when I went to your website and it shows links to all the interviews, mine's not up there. I mean, we did talk for a little while there. We did talk about your book, but you left me out of that one. So whatever, man. I thought we were a little closer than that, but hey, I guess I understand. I'll just try harder next time.
Hang up, checks notes, add podcast to website.
All right, you guys, listen, I really appreciate each one of you taking time to do this. I wasn't sure how this was going to flesh out. I had a couple of notes of things to comment on, and some of it I talked about, some I didn't. I really wanted it to be more of a conversation where one thing led to another, and you guys were wonderful about that. It was very easy to do this because you guys brought up the things to go, what was next and what was next and what was next, and I couldn't have asked for a better hour and a half to be spent than with you guys. So to each of you, thank you very much for this.
Thank you. We really enjoyed this. And Eric, thanks for putting all this together. Appreciate it.
All right, you guys, that's it. If this Gen X podcast is what you were looking for, I hope you skipped it. If something interesting is what you were looking for, I hope you stuck around and listened to it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Not sure where you're listening in from around the planet, AM, FM, Sirius XM, or perhaps you're listening in on the Armed Service Radio Network. Remember two things in life. Number one, wherever you go, there you are. And number two, I'll catch you guys on the flip side. I'm out, baby. I got to go.